Let's get into our first debate now, and we're asking, should we scrap self-checkouts to stop shoplifting? More than a third of shoppers admitted they have stolen a self-checkout. Many confess to using the banana trick. So this is a new one to me. It's where you somebody scans a cheap product like a banana while actually packing a more expensive item of the same weight. How you know what weight they are, I don't understand, I don't know. Well, you might think that the occasional item isn't much. New figures show that last year there were roughly 55,000 shoplifting incidences every day. Now, some retail bosses say that self-checkouts are largely to blame, so is getting rid of them the answer? That number again, 0207 862 2222. Cristo, are you a self-checkout guy?
I find myself, I've been radicalised into using self-checkouts, even though I hate them. But I now know I'm more efficient than going to the normal cashier because, of course, the queue will be too long. So I am doing the work that should be done by the person that works in the supermarket. Now, I have to be honest, neither in the supermarket or out have I ever pulled the banana trick.
OK.
I have to say, and I'm very glad you clarified.
Had you heard about the banana trick?
I had no idea about the banana trick. I have to say I hadn't heard about it because I don't know how much... I think you're right. I mean, how much does the banana weigh? And how would you compare it to what you were... Anyway, so I hate them, but I use them, but I hate them. And
so you would like to get rid of them?
I would love to get rid of them. I want to bring back... What happened to 5 items or less? Do you remember the 5 items or less queue?
I do, and they were marvellous.
That was great. You could just go through really quickly. Also, remember when checkouts used to be open? I mean, I'm the kind of person that goes to the manager and I say, sorry, can you open some more checkouts, please? Because you've only got...
You're that guy.
I am that guy.
The guy that everybody loves in the queue but nobody wants to be.
Yeah, I'm exactly that guy. They sort of secretly hate me but secretly love me. And so I find it really frustrating. Maybe 1 self-checkout in the corner or 2, but the fact now that you literally go to the supermarket and there are 2 lanes and the rest are all self-checkout, even for trolleys now. No, get rid. Done.
Marvyn.
I can't stand them. I just did a 2-basket shop with my kids the other day, and I went in and...
A 2-basket shop?
Because we couldn't get a trolley because no one carries pound coins anymore because this is not 1981, but mainly just because they're actually big enough to do so. My kids had to take 1 each and play. So we went to go to the checkout and we literally got stuck with about 4 different items didn't register when you put it down after you scanned it. Then there was weight and selection issues with the bakery stuff that we had got. Then when I finally did pay, and I was already flustered now, to exit, I had to scan my receipt. And then I had to scan my receipt again to say that my car parking was for shopping and not just to hang out in the local area. And so I was like, that whole process makes me specifically hate not only that chain, but the idea of shopping in a way that I used to love as a child. And I think it's a terrible idea. The second thing of that is just, I think the mistakes that people are making when they are scanning it, some people are really embarrassed and ashamed to be like, oh, I forgot this. Because now you have to confront them and be like, I left this in my trolley. And so you'd rather just walk out than go to them and be like, I kind of almost stole something by mistake.
So hold on, you're being slightly more considerate. You're saying that, I mean, the stats, the poll that was taken, people were admitting to stealing on purpose, but you think a lot of it is by accident or embarrassment that they don't want to go back?
So there are people that steal, of course, but they were talking about there's a rise in middle-class people stealing. By the way, the profile of someone that's shoplifting in retail is actually a middle class, actually a woman, actually, more than anyone else. Yep, and according to the stats. And then but what's really interesting is this kind of like, when you make a mistake with them, there just isn't the like warm process. You're not met with someone warm being like, oh, I forgot, you know, an orange in my basket, can I quickly pay for it? It's met with a bit of a confrontation. And so I think people just avoid the idea of saying, hey, look, I've accidentally stolen this thing, can I pay for it very quickly? So they'd rather just scurry out the shop. So I think the culture of it makes it really uncomfortable.
But would getting rid of them help with shoplifting, do you think?
I think absolutely. And I think also the face time that you get with people allows you, it makes it actually harder because everyone's going through a process and it's manned by a human being. There's one person normally observing multiple checkouts, self-made checkouts for everybody. And of course, they're not going to be able to see everything. So it just becomes a little bit of a self-deprecating thing.
I think you were just going back to, because I didn't like to be accused of, you know, being the statistic or the person that shoplifts.
Profile.
Apparently it's not. It's men at self-checkouts that are more likely to steal. Statistically, more men and under 35, so young people.
So it's me.
I don't qualify for either of them. Let's go to the calls. Anma from London, what's your view on this?
Yeah, I definitely think that self-checkouts should be scrapped. I have witnessed somebody, and by all indications, it was very intentional, whereby she was putting the salmon into her bag and then just scanning the cheaper items. And then also another case that I actually witnessed as well, which is sort of related. What was happening was I went to the back of a well-known shop, a well-known chain. The lady, obvious that because of the self-checkouts, there are less staff on the shop floor to monitor things that are going on. And so what she was doing, she was putting things into, she was actually shoplifting from the shelf. And she boldly, she saw me watching her. I couldn't believe it. And then this is what she did to me. She said, shh. And then she continued, knowing that there wasn't staff to monitor her. So in relation to this self-checkout, I actually approached the manager and I said, look at what's going on. And then the manager said that the costs are going to be passed on to the consumer, so to us, the customers. So yeah, the supermarkets are very aware of what's going on, and so I just left.
So you're not a fan of self-checkouts then, but still use them?
I'm not a fan. I still use them only because there's so fewer manned checkouts that, the line is just too long. So I've got no choice. But at the end of the day, I do not feel sorry for the losses that the supermarkets are now incurring, because at the end of the day, I'm sure they've only done it to maximise profits for themselves.
I do wonder whether actually, when we're talking about the 2.2 billion that shoplifting costs this country every year, I do wonder whether that is the self-checkout kind of thefts, the banana trick thefts, which I'm presuming aren't ever as hefty as when they're clearing out the shelf and it's more organised crime. I want to know what statistics, what proportion of that 2.2 billion is just the self-checkout banana tricks and what percentage is the organised crime. I imagine that it costs them more for the organised crime.
I think that's the calculation that needs to be done, though, because in a way, although we all end up paying it because supermarkets don't have a shoplifting budget, we need the shoplifting to be bad enough that it outweighs the savings they're making on staff, so that supermarkets can start to say, right, well, we might have a couple of self-checkouts, but actually we're going to have more manned tills. Because I don't think anyone minds having the option for a self-checkout, but it's the fact that now there are so many of them. It's all self-checkouts.
Ultimately, it's just greed, isn't it? It was like a good idea went too far, and now a third of all checkouts are that. And it just means that they can't monitor it at the scale that they need to, and it's now costing them more than it's worth.
Anma, thank you very much for sharing your stories. Jean from Dorset, are you a self-checkout kind of lady?
Oh, never. Never have been, never will be. Couple of points I have regarding that. As you're talking about, will it stop shoplifting if they revert back to manned checkouts? No, it emphatically won't, because people are so bold and brazen, they'll just go in with an empty trolley, fill it up and waltz out through the exit.
You think so?
I don't think it would stop it. It might reduce it slightly, but otherwise I don't see the point. Supermarkets have taken away people's jobs and brought in these infernal machines, which I have witnessed people trying to use. You've usually got one little girl going around trying to help 12 or so customers who are having problems with the things. I won't use them because I am not on the supermarket's payroll.
Jean, I think
I am not.
I think a lot of people feel the exact same way. I mean, it was a point that Cristo kind of brought up earlier. Sometimes they are a little bit quicker, particularly if you have fewer items, but I appreciate the unexpected item in shop baggage area is beyond infuriating. It's an interesting point you bring up, Jean, that people are going to steal anyway. Do you think that, Marvyn?
Yeah, I think there's different types of people who come to steal. There are people who do walk in with a trolley and they're just like taking stuff out and putting it into their bag and walking out.
That feels more organised. That feels more intentional.
Yeah, that's a different type of thing. That's not really what we're talking about here. And then there's the people who swap items, and then there are people who just put something in the bag amongst the items. I think there's slightly different grades of brazen boldness, as the caller just said, that I think they have different motivations and why they're actually doing it. And for those people who are just frustrated with the process and just think, this is more headache than I wish, and I'm just going to keep this thing that I've now found that I didn't pay for. That is a part of it, and I just think that they actually need real manned tills or people at the till to stop that happening. It reduces it.
Jean, thank you for your call. Nisa from London, what's your view?
Well, my view is, I'll be honest with you, I was one of the initial people that used to install these machines overnight shifts for Lidl's, Waitrose, and many other companies. I shouldn't have mentioned their names, but I should have done. But anyway, regardless of that, it's something I did, and I personally would say that it is something that's needed. I work, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I do an 8 to 9 hour shift like everybody else does. And the one thing I want to do is just grab a couple of bits and walk out the door. And the self-service checkout is brilliant for me.
Well, it is, and particularly brilliant for people that want to walk out the door without paying. And that's part of the problem.
Oh, no, yeah. Well,
it is that, and I know that's not what you meant, Nisa, and I absolutely know that. But there are times where people accidentally put things in their shopping trolley. They swap the more cheaper items for the more expensive ones once it goes in the bag.
Well, I'll give you an example. Storm, you asked me a question, and I'll give you a question now. I, the other day, forgot to scan my pass nips. They're only 58 pence, but I actually called the security guard and I said, do you know what, I've just paid for that, but I didn't scan my pass nips.
You did not. And what did the security guard say?
They called the guy over and he scanned it and I paid for it. But what I'm trying to say is I'm not one of them people. What I'm trying to say is not everybody's like that. Everybody, people like me, like yourself, who are working people, just want to get in and out, grab a couple of things and get out the door.
We do, but
and I mean, when I mean get out the door, I mean pay for it and get out the door.
I do understand that. But even we make mistakes. I mean, the other day, it was only a couple of weeks ago, and okay, maybe I've got baby brain, but I scanned all my items on the self-serve checkout, and it was quite a full bag I had. I just picked up the bag and went to leave. I didn't pay for it. I didn't put my card up. And the guy stopped me and pointed at the screen. I'd only got about 2 steps away and said, don't think you've paid for that. And it took me to look back and think about what had just happened. To go, you're absolutely right. Didn't even make an attempt. So I can imagine sometimes this does happen completely innocently. And that was, honestly, and many people wouldn't believe me.
The point I rang up for was that I know the stores were certain stores in certain areas. We were then told to withdraw the machines.
Yeah.
Because of this.
Well, then shops are already doing their analysis on whether it's saving them money or people are just stealing. Nisa, thank you for calling on that. Jean from London, when it comes to self-checkouts, do we need to get rid of them?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. I can top those first 2 stories you've heard. I did actually try to use a self-service thing. I had to get one of the assistants to help me with it because I'm technologically challenged, shall we say.
Jean, it's not just you, it's many, many people. We all have trouble with it. Okay, go on.
Yeah, so I got all my items up. They all came up on the screen, right? Fine. And I'm standing waiting for the assistant to come back and help me, to put the stuff on and to get it weighed and all the rest of it. And this lady was standing at the side of me, and she reached over and just pressed one of the buttons, and all my items disappeared off the screen. So obviously I didn't know what to do about it. So I thought I'll wait for the lady to come back to help me. And when she came back, she managed to get my bill up, and lo and behold, there was an item on there that I hadn't bought. It was the woman who pressed the button, put her item on my bill.
Wow.
Oh, Jean, do you think she'd done that on purpose or that was an accident?
No, it wasn't input. She could see me standing waiting, and my things were up on the screen, so she must have known that I was about to be served or helped or whatever. So she just reached over and pressed, and it was one item. She put one item on my bill.
It's
obviously
very
something
odd that
she's forgotten.
It's very odd that I don't know how. I mean, people have got tricks that I can't wrap my head around. But if you scanned an item on somebody else's self-checkout and then put it in your own bag, then you would get that unexpected item in bagging area because you didn't actually scan it on your own. So I don't know how she's managed that. And we shouldn't really be talking about that on here if there is a way of doing it.
Tactics, yeah.
Jean, but
she
I'm not.
Manage it. I can assure you, she did.
I don't doubt you.
That extra item came up on the bill. When it came back on the screen, her item was on my bill.
Jean, I'm so sorry to hear that. It will just go for the man checkouts in future. Thank you very much for your call. We'll have to move on now. Sorry, Cristo, I know you had a poignant point to make,
That's
but
all
you'll
right.
have one in the next part, and I'll let you have the first say too. 'Cause now